This video, we're going to continue on talking about repetition structures in Python. Okay. In particular, we're going to talk about calculating a running total. We've seen some problems to do this already. We're going to kind of formalize that. We'll use our running total problem to help us talk about sentinel values, which are important for while loops or condition control loops. Okay. We'll then talk about input validation loops, where we can force a user to keep trying until they get something correct. Okay. And finally, we'll talk about nested loops. Okay. So nested repetition loops are similar to the nested selection structures we talked about before with the if else, things like that. Okay. So let's start with this idea of calculating a running total. Okay. So this you're going to have in this first example, we're going to set a constant max. Once I get where I need to be, equal to, let's say, 5. Okay. And now I'm going to print out what we're going to do here. Print out. Okay. This program will sum max numbers. Okay. Just let people know what's happening. I'm using the variable there in case you ever want to change it. Okay. You could ask the user how many they wanted to sum. That would be okay as well. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to go a while. So I'm going to have a counter here, right? So I'm going to have some counter equal 0. Okay. We've had 0 numbers so far. And I can say while my counted numbers is less than or equal to max. And I think it's less than or equal to, but I'm going to have to test it out to be sure, because sometimes you want less than, sometimes you want less than or equal to. Depends on how you phrase things. So we'll have to think about that. But this is my idea for now. Okay. So while I'm inside of this loop, I'm going to go ahead and ask the user. Okay, I'm going to say num is equal, and I have to initialize here. We're going to sum these numbers. So let's do a sum equals 0 as well. Okay. So I've got num being equal to int input, enter a number. Okay, got that. Okay, once we have the number, I'm going to let sum be equal to sum plus the number. Okay. And the book talks about some shortcuts you can do. So instead of that, you can just say plus equals. There's a plus equal, minus equal, multiply equal, divide equal. We usually just use it on this. Sum plus equals num is saying that sum is equal to sum plus num. That's it. Okay. So now I'm going to come out of the loop. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to ask the user for the numbers. Okay. I should get 5 of them. That should give me my sum. And then I can finally print out the sum. Print sum is sum. Okay. Should be all we need. Let's try it and see. It takes a while to get started the first time. And this first time, I'm going to do all ones just to make it easy on myself. There we go somewhere. Okay. Here, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, did it 6. It's not stopping. Why is it not stopping? Oh, because I did another infinite loop. Okay, so I have to stop that. So let me stop that by hitting that X. Okay, common problem that we have, infinite loop. I have to increase. So I can just say C++ should increase that. Okay. That's my keyboard interrupt. Yeah, we're good. Let's try it again now. Okay, let's see. I can't do a C++ in this language. Okay, so let me do C plus equals 1. Okay. Okay, try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's still not stopping. Why is it not stopping? Oh, there's a different problem. Okay, so I'm saying while C less than or equal to max. Okay, and I'm starting max at 0, and I should be starting max at 1. To do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is okay. Okay, let's try it again. That's why we ran these. This is why I do these videos live. these programs live so you can see the errors that I make. 3, 4, 5, sum's 5. Good. Okay, we're good. So I think that's fine. So nothing wrong with that program. It works, but it's kind of limiting, okay, in that this running total of sum that we're getting, okay, we have to know how many that we're going to be using, okay? And sometimes you don't want that. You want the users to be able to enter something until they're going to put in some value that can't possibly be the case. And that'll be our sentinel value, okay? It's what stops things. So in this case, I'm going to do the same program, basically. In fact, I'm going to cut and paste it. But this time, we're going to let them enter numbers until they enter a 0. Okay, if you're adding up numbers, there would never be a reason to have a 0 because it doesn't add any value. So that 0 will be a sentinel for us to know to stop. It could also be, if they were all going to be positive numbers, it could be a -99, sometimes people use, or different things, okay? So I'm going to copy. I'm not going to copy. There's not enough that we care about. It's going to be different, okay? So in this case, I'm not going to have a counter. Okay, note, while we're here, note that I could have done this with a for loop, right? I could have said for C in range max. Okay, and then done exactly the same thing, enter a number and sum it. It would have worked the same way. Okay, so there's always options on that. Okay, but because that basically we've made it a count control loop. But down here we want this to be a condition control loop. Okay, so I'm going to be asking the user to enter a number. Okay, but what we often have to do, there are a couple of ways to go here. So if I say while num is not equal to 0, okay, then I'm going to say num is equal to int input. Actually, I can copy that stuff. All that, enter a number, okay, and then I can say sum plus equal num, which I have to make sure I set my initial condition to sum equal to 0. Okay, space there, make it a little easier to see. Okay, I don't need my counter anymore because I'm asking for it every time, and that should be fine. Then I should be able to sum, right? So this has got some potential, but I think there's some things we have to worry about here. Okay, so the problem is we're checking here to see if num is not equal to 0. Okay, so the first time we run this, who knows what num's going to be equal to. Okay, so let me enter a number, which is okay. So that worked, but you have to be careful about this. There's no guarantee that this num will have the correct value. Oh, it had a value because it had something before. I think if I would have done an n instead, it may not have worked. So you have to make sure that it gets into here the first time. Okay, so let's try this now. Yeah, it's not defined, so it gives me an error right off the bat. Okay, so I can go up here and say n is equal to something else, 4. Okay, it doesn't matter at this point because I'm replacing it immediately here. Okay, so that could be anything but 0 and it should be fine. Okay, but what often happens instead, they'll ask the user for a number outside the loop the first time. I'm going to ask for the first value here. Okay, and then we have to change the order of this. So now we're saying enter a number, okay, and as long as that number is not 0, add it to the sum, ask for another number, okay. So this should work. So if I enter 0, I'm just done, sum 0, which is what you want, okay. But if I enter 5, 5, 5, 5, 0, the sum is 20. Looks okay. Okay. So again, on the while loop, you have to make sure by the time that you hit it, that it does let you in one time. Okay. Okay, so our next point here we're going to talk about is our input loop validations. Okay. It's where you want to keep a user in entering some bit of information until they get it right, basically. Okay, so add a new code block here. Okay, so this is part of a program that's on page 189 in the textbook, program 416 on retail with validation. Okay, so basically, and I'll just do part of this here. We're going to ask for a wholesale price. Okay, so we'll say wholesale is equal to float input, enter the wholesale cost. Okay, and we're not saying it, we're making an assumption here. It can't be 0. Okay, so I can put a note here. Wholesale cannot be negative. Okay, and we've mostly just gone along with our programs, and it is what it is. We don't care too much about it. Okay, but we're now going to do this loop. We're going to validate wholesale to ensure it is greater than equal to 0. So it can't be negative. Okay, so it can't be 0. Okay. No, actually it can't be. Looking at the rest of the problem, it can't be. Oh, yeah, that is correct. Okay, so we're going to check here, and this is kind of strange when we think about it. We're going to say a while. So when is this not true? If it's not greater than or equal to 0, it's less than 0. Okay, so while wholesale is less than 0. Okay, so now we know we're in an error condition. Okay, and we're going to print out to the user about that error cost cannot be negative. Okay, so we could have done that before, and basically we've used an if statement, just told them, and then we would have stopped. But we want them to keep trying till they get it right. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're just going to ask the question again. So I'm going to copy this whole question down inside this loop. Okay, kind of tab it wider. Hope it doesn't mess with your video screen. Okay, so now we're saying wholesale is equal to this. Enter the wholesale cost. Enter a number. Okay, that should be both of those a colon. It doesn't matter. It's just for show, but you want to be consistent in your user interface. Or enter a number. Okay, if the number is less than 0, we're going to print out an error. Cost can't be negative. Ask again. We're going to stay in this loop until they get it right. So as soon as the wholesale is greater than or equal to 0, that's our sentinel condition, our terminal condition, we're out. Okay. So down here we can print, whatever we want. Cost is whatever we got. Okay. So straightforward enough. So we can test this to see. And again, we use a while loop here because it's going to keep asking until they get it right. Okay. I'm going to run here. Wholesale cost. Let's say I do negative 20. Okay. Can't do that. Error. Okay. Enter it again. Now let's do negative 90. Nope. Let's enter negative 9999. Nope. None of that works. Okay. Until I enter something that works, do I get that? Okay. One thing I will say, the book doesn't do this, but I do. I like to put a tab there because when you run it, I like it to stand out a little bit. Okay. Now I know there's a problem, and I know that I'm looping back. Okay. So from now on, I mean, we add stuff and we're like, oh, that's cool, but now we're responsible for it. So now whenever you can, we're going to start validating our input. Okay. We can't yet deal with something like they enter letters. We're getting there, but we're going to have to do exception handling to get to that. Okay. So that should be our input validation. Okay. So the last thing we're going to talk about then is going to be nested loops. Okay. So nested loops, we'll write this one more time. Some of you leave errors on your programs, and I think that's harder for me to grade, so you probably don't want to do that. Okay. Anyway, one more code block here. Okay, this we're gonna do nested loops. Okay, so we can imagine a scenario here that there are a couple ways to go. For a for loop, if we're doing something with 2 dimensions, okay, so we're going to have student 1 is going to have, every student's going to have 10 test scores, okay, and I want to go through all of those by number. So student 1, so there'll be a 1 1 1 2 all the way to a 1 10. That's too many for this example. Let's do, they're going to be 3 exams. So there's a student 1 exam 1, student 1 exam 2, student 1 exam 3, then student 2 exam 1. Okay, so the outermost loop is going to deal with the students. Okay, so I'm going to start by, I'm going to for loop for our students. Okay, so we can assume here that students is equal to, say, 5. Okay, and number of exams is equal to 3. Okay, so we're going to start looping through the students. Okay, so I'm going to say for let's say student in range num students. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and print student to make sure I'm getting this right. Okay, so I'm going to run this and see. Gives a student 0, student 1, student 2, student 3, student 4. Okay, so that's not exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and fix this to be a 1 to num students plus 1. Okay, that gets us a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got it fixed. Okay, so that part's good. So we don't have to worry about that. So now inside of this loop, we want to loop for exam. Okay, so now we have for exam in range. Same kind of deal. Start with 1 up to num exams plus 1. Okay, then put colon there. And let's go ahead and print. Let's print student exam. Okay, to make sure we're in the right spot. Okay, and then we can do something with it, set values or whatever we do. Okay, so note how this works. The outer loop, the first, when this hits, okay, let's follow the cursor. It's a comment, we don't care, comment, we don't care. We're setting this constant, kind of, I should have made all caps, but you get the idea. Okay, number of students equal to 5, number of exams is equal to 3. We ignore that. We start this loop. We get a student value of 1. I start this loop. We now have an exact exam value of 1. This first time is going to be a 1, 1. Okay. Then when it hits the end of this line, it goes back to here. Then it's going to do 1, 2. Back to here, 1, 3. Only then does it go back up to here and get 2, 1. Okay. So if I wanted to print this out a little nicer, I could print out like a little ordered pair. That student, literally put a comma in between exam, put an ending parentheses. Okay. So now if you look, see what we get. I start with 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. Okay, student 1, exam 1. 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, and so forth. Okay. And what you sometimes will do, if you put a print statement here, okay, it's at the end, it's outside of this loop. Okay, so it's going to, between students, it'll print out a blank line. Okay, so you see everything for student 1, blank line, that's here. Now it goes back up to here, every student for student 2, student 3, student 4, student 5. Okay, and we can access things in that way. Okay, so yeah, it's these are pretty useful to have these loops whenever we need to do more than one thing. Okay. So yeah, that's the last section of the of this that we're going to cover today. Oh, the other example I can give is pretty straightforward that may also help you to figure this out. Get rid of this. They're doing hours, minutes, and seconds. So let's get that one. Okay. So we've got four. Again, we want to deal with the outermost, the leftmost thing first. Okay, so that's going to be hours. So hours, it's going to be in range 60. Hours in range 24, 24 hours in a day. Okay. Then inside of that, I'm going to say for mins in range 60. And then for seconds in range 60. Okay. Inside of all of this, we can then print the hours, print a colon, mins, print the colon again, seconds. Okay. And again, it's going to go, so to go through a step by step again, we start here, we ignore that because it's a comment. We're starting the first loop. Okay, so hours at this point is equal to 0. Okay, we go here, minutes equal to 0, seconds equal to 0. Okay, so we're now here, we print out 0, 0, 0. Okay, we now go back to here to get 1, to get 2, to get 3, all the way till it gets to 59. Okay, only then do we go back up to here, get 1 more minute. So minutes now 1. Okay, do it again. Okay, so this line is going to be this print gets done a whole bunch. Okay, so if you do this and it doesn't like something, oh, I didn't keep my variable name the same. Okay, let's run that. And you see it prints, it's going to print a lot of stuff. Okay, I'm still on hour 0. Now I'm on hour 1. Okay, but make sure you understand the order that we're doing them in. Okay, and then I can just always stop that anytime along the way. Okay, stop that there eventually. Maybe stop it here. Yeah, stop it there. Okay. So now we have our keyboard interrupt, which we did on purpose, which is okay. Okay, so again, the only real trick there is seeing how all of these happen for every one of these. So there are 60 seconds for every minute, 60 minutes for every hour. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, so if you have questions about that, and the book has a flow chart if you're curious how that works. But again, I encourage you to take the outermost loop first, get it working and tested, and then add the innermost loops inside of that one. Easiest way to go, I think. Okay. So if you have questions, as always, make sure that you let me know.